I could like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us during our weekly hybrid ML's breakfast meeting. My name is Samson Wu, and I am your September program chair. It's a little about me. So my name is Samson, and I'm a real estate professional with a background in digital marketing. I speak both Mandarin and Cantonese. I began my career um, specializing in digital marketing, focusing on Google PPC, Facebook marketing, and SEO. Later, I moved into IT security solutions at a software company where I handle accounts for major clients like Samsung and LG. I also obtained my MLO license and had to enhance my understanding of market dynamic and client needs. Currently, I'm with Pinnacle Real Estate Group, focusing on commercial properties. Over the past 12 months, I have closed $45 million in deals, with $30 million of that in commercial real estate. For fun, I enjoy badminton, snowboarding, mountain biking, and exploring new places. I could like to share a little about our guest speaker, Bryan Cook. Bryan has been the city manager of Temple City since September 2014. Before that, he served at the city of Southgate and began his career in municipal government in 1999. With the city of West Hollywood, Bryan is actively involved in several regional and local boards. Please help me welcome Mr. Bryan Cook.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all and good to be with you again. The inspirational quote made me think. Yesterday, I actually was at the services of the first city manager of Temple City, Carl Koski, who died at the ripe old age of 94. And it's just a reminder of, while you get, jazzed up and, thinking about all the accomplishments, and I'll talk about some of the accomplishments that the city has achieved over the last few years, but it's really those who came before us who set foundations, the manner in which we grow as a city, and just the hard work it took to really build up a city from the start. He was the city manager in 1961, 1 year after the incorporation of the city, and was there for almost 29 years. So I'm grateful to Carl for his work and the foundation that he set and built for all of us who came after him. So thinking about Carl today and yesterday as well. Speaking of Temple City holistically, if I was to describe it in a few words, we're strong, we're steady, and we're investing in our community. Next slide. On the housing front and mixed use front, we have one of our first mixed use projects in the city, Begonia Place, that is now leasing and is doing well. And I'll talk a little bit about what we think is a little bit of a plateau or downturn that we're starting to see in the housing market as well. And I'll talk about some of the other aspects of what we think we're seeing some steady growth with. We have another mixed use project that's happening at the corner of Cloverly and Las Tunas. That one is still underway. Ken Wu of Pacific Plaza Partners. Some of you may know him. Some of you may have worked with him on other projects. Great mixed use developer. We're excited about these projects. Part of the issue that we're facing, just like other cities throughout the state of California, is meeting what are called our RHNA numbers, our housing unit numbers. We have a compliant housing element. You may have read in the paper, many cities are still struggling with the state in dealing with the compliance with the housing element. Credit to our community development staff and our community development director who's spoken here before, Scott Reimers, who's done an outstanding job in threading that needle of having a suburban infill community just like Temple City and still meeting those housing RHNA numbers. It was a monumental achievement, and we're on our way to compliance. Demonstrating some of that compliance as well is, some of you may have seen an article about a few weeks ago about ADUs out throughout Southern California and the per capita amount of ADUs in each community. Temple City was in the top 5 of ADUs that were constructed per capita throughout LA County. It was interesting to see. So with the state of California truly forcing cities to re-examine and look at their land use in providing housing production, we would argue as Temple City, we are doing more than our fair share. We are trying to deal realistically with what is available in terms of land value, what can really be done realistically financially from a development standpoint, but also to doing what we can. We are not creating barriers to those who want to develop in the city. We are trying to look for quality development, even in our ADU ordinance as well, which some of you may have dealt with some of your clients. We do ask for specific standards. We do ask for specific aesthetic outcomes in terms of the manner in which ADUs look, but we do that with intentional purpose. That intentional purpose is about blending those ADUs into the community. We've been challenged on other issues with the state as well, with our Senate Bill 9 ordinance. We are working with the state right now. Some of you may have read that article. I never want to be quoted in the Wall Street Journal. I've been quoted once, and that was the last time I ever want to be seen or quoted in the Wall Street Journal. That was about our SB 9 ordinance. So it is a balancing act working with the state of California, but I can proudly stand in front of you. I can proudly stand in front of any agency that questions our commitment to housing production. And the city council and our planning commission have done an outstanding job in giving us the policies and the tools in order to try to meet those goals. So next slide, please. Thank you. On the general housing front, we are starting to see a bit of a plateau. We are seeing a bit of a plateau and a small downturn in the amount of permits we're getting and the valuations of those permits. It is starting to, I wouldn't say this is a down cycle from what we're seeing, but we're only seeing it anecdotally in Temple City. But the last 6 to 9 months, we have seen a little bit of we've seen a plateau in the amount of permits and the valuations of those permits, meaning what levels of permits, what is the type of construction, the value of the construction, the value of the improvements that we're seeing with our single family homes in particular, but also to some small duplexes and multifamily homes. On the new housing front, sorry, yes, thank you. On the new housing front, we're a team, we're working together here. Well, on the new housing front, we also are not seeing as many new housing construction as well. So we're just seeing, as one of the properties you just saw pitched a little bit ago, a lot of the older homes that are smaller, 1,400 square feet on an 8,000 square foot lot. People are taking those, either converting them, keeping them, or sitting on them for a little bit of time. So at least from our perspective in Temple City, in the kind of microcosm that we live in the San Gabriel Valley, we're not seeing a significant downturn, but we're not seeing the growth that we saw that popped right out of the pandemic as well. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we have seen over the last few years and are starting to plateau a little bit, but is our food establishments. Our food establishments represent 40% of the city's sales tax revenue. A significant portion of our sales tax revenue comes from food establishments. For those of you who have not been to Array 36, I suggest that you go there if you like Peking duck. They are known for their Peking duck as well. I think if you spend $200, you get a $39 Peking duck. So after you have a great commission, great sale, celebrate Array 36 or Bistro Na or many of our other food establishments throughout the city. Bistro Na is pre-pandemic was one of the first Michelin star rated restaurants in the San Gabriel Valley. Still keeps up its amazing quality. I'm not endorsing any of the restaurants, but just speaking of some of our great restaurants, Green Zone and others throughout our little area. And next slide, please. Camellia Square and across the street from there, that Four Corners is really our food establishment area. Bakchang, the Dive, great story about the Dive. A local resident built that restaurant. It's a seafood restaurant. For those of you who haven't been there, Cajun. He was about to go under. We helped him out. They did a lot of outdoor dining. He is now franchising his concept throughout Southern California and actually up in the Bay Area as well. So Johnny is a local story, local boy done good. And we're proud of him, and we eat there quite often as well. So we're really proud of the food establishments that have made Temple City their home and made a mark on Temple City. We are trying to leverage that as well. Our Chamber of Commerce has done a great job in trying to leverage. We've done some mini food events throughout this past summer. We will continue that tradition going forward. Very successful. helps with nonprofits who get a portion of those food night events. And so we'll continue with that going forward. On the other commercial front, next slide, please. We're starting to see some reinvestment back into our community as well. GW Supermarket, Great Wall Supermarket, invested in what was the old Kmart site at Las Tunas and Rosemead Boulevard, making this one of their marquee supermarkets in their chain. So we're very proud and happy to have them as providing a needed service in Temple City. Next slide, please. Ace Hardware is coming to town as well, backfilling an old Rite Aid site. Again, when you're looking at mixtures of commercial uses, you want to look at community serving types of uses. The days of when cities, and not that Temple City was ever in that position because of the land availability it had, but there was a lot of competition between cities back in the day. I'm going to fight for that car dealership. I'm going to fight for that Costco. I'm going to fight for that Target. Those days are gone, both statutorily in terms of the law that has changed about tax sharing issues. Some of you may have seen a Wall Street a Bloomberg article recently about some tax sharing issues related to warehouses in the Central Valley. That's still playing out, but what is not playing out anymore as significantly is a city fighting for a Costco. So we're looking for those community-based, community-serving types of businesses that do provide us with sales tax revenue, but more importantly, an Ace Hardware or a GW Supermarket providing the services to the community. So they want to be in the community, not only to spend the community, but also, and help with the property values in the community going forward. Next slide, please. And along those lines to some of those community amenities and services, Choose Fitness. For those of you who've never been to Choose Fitness, I suggest you go there. It is an interesting concept. It is not the same kind of concept that you see with what was kind of Bally's, or I'm aging myself there, or other types of fitness centers. It is a comprehensive, almost lifestyle type of center for fitness. Several of my staff go there, and they're gone there during lunch, and I said, I hope you're coming back. So it's if you do have a chance, there's several that are starting to grow in the Southern California area, down from San Diego up to this part of the San Gabriel Valley and throughout LA County. Next slide, please. One of the aspects that makes, as you know, and I don't need to pitch this to all of you, you know that one of the things that makes Temple City one of the more attractive cities in the San Gabriel Valley is the strength of our school district. Our school district is typically ranked as one of the top in the state of California. The school district is making several investments throughout their school sites right now, including their high school, including a new football field, athletic fields. They've made several investments throughout the last decade to upgrade their facilities, to modernize their facilities so that they are truly competitors in terms of that very tough market of trying to locate where you want to move as a family and where you want to raise a family, and the public school district. They are a great partner with us. Temple City would not be Temple City without the strength of the school district. So we appreciate their partnership. They've gotten out of the pandemic very well. The one thing we are seeing, though, is the enrollment numbers, but this is a trend not just in Temple City, but county-wide and statewide. The participation and the enrollment rate in public schools is lower than it has been in decades. There are some demographic changes that are happening broadly in society, in our country, that's happening already. They have done a good job of stemming that tide in comparison to other school districts. They are accepting transfers, but also most people who move to Temple City are enrolling in public schools, in the public school system. So that's not only a success for us, but part of building community and a sense of place in the San Gabriel Valley. Next slide, please. This is our specialty crime team. We do contract out with the LA County Sheriff's Department. We are proudly a contract city. That's to the left, Francis Bowie, middle, Van Lam, far right, Randall Anchondo. This is our day-to-day team who deals with our quality of life issues. It gets tough because when you tell people that your Part 1 crimes are down almost 25%, says, well, my neighbor got robbed or I got robbed. crime is personal, and I understand that. Like, and many of us in this room have probably been victims of crimes, and that hits you psychologically. So it's hard to hear that Part 1 crimes are down in the community, but we saw during COVID there was a significant downturn in Part 1 crimes throughout the county of Los Angeles, and including in Temple City. After COVID, we started to see a uptick in Part 1 crimes throughout LA County, also in Temple City. Residential burglaries are our top crime in Temple City, but we are starting to see a downward tick, and we should be seeing pandemic close to pandemic numbers in terms of Part 1 crimes. But knock on wood, we got a few more months to go before the end of the calendar year, so we're hoping that our Part 1 crimes stay at the pace and the intensity that they're at. Next slide, please. The other thing we're doing is the last few years we've really been investing in our infrastructure, and we really want to make sure that we are known in the San Gabriel Valley as a community that embraces families. We want you to come and invest and be part of the community. So this is one of 3 playgrounds that we've constructed and are in the process of constructing right now. This is Primrose Park. This is about almost 2 years old now, but it is one of our premier parks. This is behind Las Tunas, between Temple City Boulevard and Camellia. Temple City Art Park and Primrose. If you ask me when we first built this thing, would we get people to go to a park that's behind a bunch of commercial properties? I would have said, I don't think so, but we'll try. If you go to that park on a day-to-day basis, it is outstandingly used in a way that families are there constantly, and we're really happy. And there was an absolute need. We're doing 2 other parks in the city as well, which includes our primary park, Live Oak Park, which will have a rocket-based, STEM-based themed playground. We're really proud of that. Hopefully in early 2025, we'll be opening that up and providing that community. Next slide, please. So one of our smaller playgrounds, our bamboo forest, again, trying to make sure that there are amenities that the community it not only uses, but it reminds the community of why they came to Temple City, why they wanted to be here. And we want to continue to make those investments over time. Part of the reason why we've been able to make these investments over time is financially. The council has, for many years since my time and even prior to that, has taken a very conservative approach to their finances in terms of what we're spending, how we're spending it, and what we're spending it on. Continuously, we've been having surpluses, minus COVID, which every city got hit with a major downturn in revenue, but that revenue picked up significantly after COVID, much faster than any of us anticipated. I went through the 2008 financial crisis in the city of Southgate, and within an 18-month period, we saw almost a 60% reduction in our sales tax revenue. It was catastrophic, to say the least, a major hit. We were fearful that that was the case with COVID. There was a time where for those about 6 to 9 months, we were very concerned, ready to use reserves. We only had to use a small amount of reserves to get through that fiscal year and have grown continuously since then. Next slide, please. The other thing we're going to be doing, investing in our community, is investing in Las Tunas. Las Tunas corridor, our commercial corridor, it is a challenge. The commercial landscape has changed so much in my time in the last 25 years of local government, and particularly after COVID as well. You saw the stark realities of what was already brewing in terms of trends, economic trends, exacerbated and exploding in what was happening in commercial space. Many of you may be trying to sell, or maybe are realtors or brokers with commercial properties. It is an extreme challenge, but we still see some level of vibrancy. So we're going to be doing some, and we are in the process. If you go down Las Tunas now, you're in the process of just, I would call it a makeover. It's not a huge reinvestment. It's about $3 million we're putting into the streetscape to just improve the appearance, look, and feel of the streetscape. And so the other thing we're doing in our streets and investing is, one of our challenges is just roads. Roads are kind of essential. You don't think about them, kind of like you don't think about the sewers, you don't think about water, you don't think about those things on a day-to-day basis. But when you hit that pothole and you're going in to get a new tire, then you think about those things. We've invested over the last 2 years about $10 million into our roads. Unfortunately, $10 million doesn't get you what it used to. $10 million isn't what it used to be. So we have about a funding gap of about $2.5 million annually to maintain our roads at what would be considered a high level higher condition rate, meaning there's something called the PCI level, pavement condition index, 0 to 100, 100 being best. We're at about 65 right now. What we want to do long term is put it up closer to 75, 80 on an ongoing basis, so that what that really means is that when you drive down most residential streets or most streets in the city, you're not going to hit a pothole. You're not going to see major structural stress on the roads, and they'll be maintained over time on a consistent basis. That's a bit of a challenge for us. It's a challenge for every city in the San Gabriel Valley. There's not one city that's not challenged with that. But we're trying to tackle that going forward. The council will actually be doing a study session at our next meeting to discuss some possible options and in order to address that. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and speak in front of you again. Very proud of what we've accomplished for the last 10 years. The city council has done an outstanding job of being great stewards of what was a community that Carl Koski and many other council members before built the foundation for. And we look forward to continuing that legacy of building and strengthening a great community in the San Gabriel Valley. So I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, please come up to the mic in the front.
Morning.
Bryan, thank you so much. Wonderful information. I really enjoy about all these facility, the food things. I go to Icho, I go to the fitness center every day. So when you mentioned about the Las Tunas on the 3 million streetscape, can you explain more details about that?
Sure. It's not as exciting as it sounds. It's really just a makeover. So we're painting the poles from those ugly 1980s green colors to a more modern black matte color. You'll see we took out a lot of the irrigation, some of the pots, and some of the greenery that was there was old and aged. We're not getting rid of the ficus trees, so I do not need a protest out there with people saying to tear down the ficus trees. But we've been doing some stuff to the infrastructure below that to make sure that ficus trees, kind of a nerdy thing, but ficus trees are horrible on infrastructure, on roads and on sidewalks. Our team has done an excellent job. One of our lead tree maintenance worker, Jesus, has done an outstanding job of making sure that the growth of those trees don't overly impact the infrastructure, but we're doing some other things behind. So a lot of it is kind of work that you're not going to see per se, but you're going to see some new pots, some new plants, some new lighting, LED lighting throughout, even though LED lighting's been around for quite a long time. We're catching up to, we're moving into 2010 on our lighting throughout the city. So, those are some of the things we're going to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have one question right here real quick. It's about the ADU that you mentioned prior. So I guess the question is, how easy is it to get the ADU approved? How long does it take? And will that be ending anytime soon?
Well, according to the LA Times, we're doing pretty darn good. But generally speaking, statutorily, we have the Permit Streamlining Act, but depending on what you're doing, if it's a standalone versus a junior ADU, anywhere between 45 days or so, you can usually get that through the process. It depends on if it's ministerial versus having to go to the planning commission. Most of them don't have to go to the planning commission. So they are ministerial, meaning staff can make that decision. Staff can work with you. But I try to get that through in 60 days or so, but sometimes we get through faster. And we do have a lot of conditions in terms of the aesthetics that we're looking for. Again, because we're not trying to do that to impede the ability for people to build ADUs, because we've demonstrated that we are not a city that prohibits ADUs being built, but we are looking for something that complements the neighborhood and the community. And I think we've been very successful with that. And I give compliments to our planning commission and our community development director, who really set some standards there that and we went through a pretty extensive process with the development community and contractors as well to set the rules and standards that we applied. And where the state is coming down on a lot of other cities for some of those rules and governmental constraints, we're not in that category. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about any issues that you have. Please talk to me or our community development director if you're having any issues with an ADU that one of your clients is trying to build, or if you're looking at a property and the ability to build an ADU. The state of California stripped away a lot of land use regulations to local government in the last few years related to housing production, and ADU has been one of those. And you can argue that that may have been needed, or you can argue that it's been a bit of an overreach. Our goal is always to comply with state law, but doing it in a way that fits Temple City.
Okay, I have a question too. You know, the Temple City is a really pretty city. I live in Temple City for like almost 30 years. But I noticed on Rosemead, cross street from the GW market, right now they have the tent for the homeless people. So I want to know the city, what you could do about the homeless people.
For those who are unhoused, it's a significant problem throughout LA County. For those of you who saw the grants pass decision that was overturned by the Supreme Court, while loosened cities' ability to enforce things like encampments and others, still we come from an approach from compassion first. That compassion does not mean we tolerate public health issues or anything else. But we are not bound by the law to provide any type of meaty housing. We provide, so long story short, earlier this year, we passed a couple ordinances for activity in the public right of way and activity in parks, meaning so if you're smoking, you're drinking, you're using drugs, anything else, we will actually ban you from the park rather than arresting, because the county system right now, the jail system and the sheriff's department are stressed and overwhelmed with the amount of activity and those who are in the jail system now. So what you could have done 20 years ago to arrest somebody for lighting up or using drugs in a park, they're not going to be jailed, they're going to be cited. So our approach now is like, okay, if you're violating these municipal code violations, we're going to ban you from these areas. We're working with our property owners, our commercial property owners, asking for what's called a letter of agency, meaning when the property owner is not there and someone is not there or doing something illegal or an illegal activity that violates the municipal code or state or federal law, we can arrest them on site. So we're taking that approach as well. We also work with a group called Licata that provides rehabilitation, alcohol and rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation services. They actually have a hotel that's on near the 710 freeway off of Valley as well. To be quite frank, for those who are accepting that help and changing their lives, because this is a human tragedy that's happening throughout our country. And for those who can take those services, they're doing it. What we're finding and what is frustrating for local government to hear a lot of times sometimes from those above us is just go deal with these problems now. Well, the folks that we're dealing with are the high acuity level folks. They are folks who are so far gone that any services you provide them, they either don't accept. We've had many individuals where we have stacks of documents of how many times not only we referred them, but how many times they've gone to those services, gone out and been in the same place again. We know them by name. And it is a very frustrating. So it's a problem that, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, Temple City, there's not a homeless problem, right? Or there was a perception there wasn't a homeless problem. It's in every city in LA, in the San Gabriel Valley. It's every city in LA County. And we're trying a multifaceted approach, be it through the enforcement of our municipal codes for banning people in the parks and the public right of way, to arresting when we need to, but arresting, it just doesn't help. And it's a challenge. And the team that you saw, Randall, Francis, and Van, they are out literally every single day of every shift they're on, and every day they're dealing with a homeless issue in Temple City. So it is a human tragedy that is playing out day to day in our communities and throughout many communities. There is a measure that's on the November ballot to deal with homeless funding as well. We see a little bit of that. It's a frustrating process, and it's a frustrating process between us and our partners at LA County as well. I think there's some sense that there needs to be a real restructuring of how you look at services. But
talking about services, based on system. Some of those services, do they include housing? Because if you don't start with housing, the services are like you just mentioned. Is there any housing?
not in Temple City. We just do not have the available space per se. And also too, there are other housing units throughout the San Gabriel Valley. So for Lakota, we'll refer somebody to find transitional housing. But that's not always permanent housing, but that transitional housing can be many months in advance, for many months, sometimes even a year or two. But housing overall, affordable housing, to your point directly, affordable housing throughout the state of California is a crisis. We are in a crisis of affordable housing. I'm going to speak ill of the state of California one more time. Please excuse me. Back in 2012, the only financial tool that cities had in order to provide affordable housing was taken away when redevelopment was ended in California. Of that $1 redevelopment money that came to every city, 20% of that had to go into a housing trust fund, affordable housing trust fund. That is how most cities provided for affordable housing, be it senior affordable housing or anything. Once that was stripped away, the only thing the private sector had to hope for was tax credits and other things. They did not have the assistance of local government anymore to provide either write-downs on buying property or directly assisting with the loan, the financial structure to be able to build a affordable housing unit that made financial sense. There are several organizations throughout the San Gabriel Valley and LA County, but you don't see the level of housing production for affordable housing because financially it is extremely challenging. And when I'm aging myself again, more than 10 years ago now, when redevelopment was taken away, the only tool we had financially to assist in that process was stripped from us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fortunately, that was the only time we had for questions, but if anybody else has any questions, maybe after the meeting, you can certainly come up to the podium.
Thank you very much, Brian. And on behalf of the West San Gabriel Valley Realtors, I could like to thank our guest speaker for this very informative presentation. And please accept this small token of our appreciation. Thank you everyone for joining our meeting today. Have a wonderful day. This meeting is now adjourned.